Are you experiencing the storm is getting ready to come, or it's okay still? There's no storm. But there will be sooner or later, one of these days. But there was a film that I saw about the greatest sea rescue ever done, according to that film. And this film is called Our Finest Hour. And it was in America, in Cape Cod. There was a oil tanker which got in a big storm, stuck on a sandbar. And there were something like 33 sailors on board. And the ship broke in half. And half where the men were was stuck on the sandbar, and the other half, I don't know, it must have gone off somewhere. And it was very, very dangerous. So this one young man who had just become a Coast Guard the day before or something. And so they got a distress signal, and nobody wanted to go because it was so unlikely to succeed. But he said, I will go. And he took a boat which could hold 12 people by himself. And in the night, in the extreme rain and wind and totally unsuitable for going boating. And he said, I know this piece of the ocean. This is Atlantic Ocean off Cape Cod, northern US, near Canada. And he got them, and he brought them back. And it required incredible courage. And nobody wanted him to go, so he turned off the radio so he couldn't get any instructions. And he lost his compass in the big waves, but he made it. And I thought, this is, a good analogy for us. Not that we are at the moment faced with such incredible storms, but this is our subject, that as and when, if and when a storm comes along, then how is the good sailor? Because a storm can come anytime without warning. And usually the meteorological people let you know what's happening, but sometimes they don't. And there are times in our lives when we can anticipate that something big is going down, and we know that we are heading into it, and there's nothing we can do about it, so we just have to do it, without any idea whether there will be a good outcome or we will be very messed up in the process or what will happen. You just go. And other times you just don't know, and you suddenly find yourself in the midst of this, comes out of nowhere, and you have to deal with it. And these may be often connected with relationships. And this is because we are human souls in the material world, interacting with other human souls through bodies, and the interaction involves karma. And karma is very complicated. So there is a deep philosophy of karma, which is not our topic, but what we do know, which is useful for this part, is that the present time that we are living through is a time of settlement of karma. So whatever outstanding karma we have, or anybody else has, it's coming up for settlement. Because yoga is all about finishing off your karmic bondages and becoming free. So there are some people who do yoga for the purpose of going to nirvana. And that means going to a state of freedom and not coming back. So to be free at that level means that nothing is left over from any lifetime. So soul who is immortal has a number of lifetimes. You don't know how many, quite a few maybe. And you don't know what you've been doing, or as what, or with whom. But the law of karma is that at this time, there will be a strong attraction to certain people with whom you have a heavy debt. Do you have anybody like that in your life where there's been a strong attraction? So it comes with a ball and chain. And so this is the indication of a karmic account. A strong attraction may be you recognize this person, this is a soulmate, this is all very positive. And then it turns around and becomes the opposite. And then there is disturbance, plenty of disturbance. And your relationship can go along very nicely for quite some time, and all of a sudden it's like the end of that sunny part, and the storm comes, and it comes out of nowhere. And that's the game of karma. And it's very distressing because it can create a feeling of betrayal, a feeling of rejection, abandonment, anger, all different types of emotions, and surprise, and so many different kinds of feelings where you suffer and you can't do anything about it because it just landed on top of you just like that. And so you have to go through it. And we have learned in our study and practice things quite a few tips and tricks for managing these things. Because quite honestly, no one is exempt. It's that time when whatever has to come down is coming down, and it's there for us to take the test. It's like an exam. And the exam is something to understand. What are we being tested on? And so some of it is stability. Can you be stable when there's this incredible upheaval going on? It's a test of self-confidence, that you are confident that all these things happening doesn't mean anything negative about me. I am a good soul, and that's that. And bad things happen to good souls. It's normal. Because it's a test of courage, of faith in the self, or faith in your value, and faith that whatever is happening is only a game. And it's a complex game because it's testing many different attributes of your being. And the test is really not a test about letting you know that you fail here and you failed there and you failed there. No, it's not about that. It's a test to let you know that you have capabilities that you didn't know before, because it never came up. So you didn't know that you can manage it with certain characteristics, skills, intuitions, qualities that are there, but you don't know about them because you haven't had to use them. And so this test comes to let you know that you have this. So, but it's scary because you don't know until you rise to the occasion. So the circumstance means rise to the occasion because you have it in you to do whatever it takes to make it through this storm. And this is why I thought this film was quite a good one to look at, to see the analogies contained in it, and that this person who was rescuing these men, and his boat holds 12 people, and out of the 33 people, one of them jumped overboard, landed in the ocean and got lost, but all the other 32 he put on his boat made for 12, and all the lights went out on shore, so the people turn on the headlights of their cars so he could see which way to go. And he got back with everybody. And that was just an analogy to let you know that there are spiritual laws at work here, such as if you are doing something because it's the right thing to do, regardless of the danger and so on and so forth, you will get help, like divine help, to fulfill the test. And so it also lets you know at a very deep level that you're not alone. And that's sometimes a very important thing for a person to know, that I don't need to depend on anyone because I'm not alone. There is an energy, a presence that is with me because I'm a good soul and I'm doing the right thing even though all these bad things are happening. So sometimes, in terms of karma philosophy, some bad thing happens to you because you asked for it, you did something which produces that, but not always. Sometimes it's because you do not know who you are, you do not know your greatness, you do not know what you're capable of. And until you have a test like this, you won't know. And for high-quality beings like yourselves, it's more likely to be that. Because if you look deep, deep down in your being, and in silence, deep down, you do not find that you are evil people. Right? You don't. I can see in your vibration it's not there. So if there was, you could feel it. You know, you could feel it, I could feel it, anybody can feel it. And so usually we say, okay, give a little bit extra space to this soul with certain vibrations, but in your history of your karma, you do what you do according to your values, according to your understanding. You do your best, isn't that right? And then something happens which doesn't fit with that, and so it can make you have doubt about yourself. So part of the test is do not doubt, because that's not what it means. Do not interpret it in that way. That is not the only possible interpretation. There's a better interpretation. Understand the right interpretation. Understand who you are, and you come into your power. So spiritual practice is very much about coming into your power, irrespective of different messages, circumstances, and so on, which appear to be telling you that you're not worthy, that you're not clean, that this, that, and the other. But do not consider appearance to be reality, because things are not what they seem. This is another spiritual law. So spending time in silence and considering these things also means going deeper than superficial interpretations or responses to what's happening. Deep, and understand that it's happening to push you into your power and to reinforce or enforce that you are something of substance and value, which is nothing to do with what you see when you look in the mirror. It just shows you your current face. It doesn't show you who you are. But these storms do show you who you are. And they let you know whether you are afraid of death or not, because you don't know until you hit it. They let you know whether you're afraid of pain or not. You don't know until you hit it. They let you know whether you can handle betrayal or not, and you do not know until it hits. And when you get in front of these storms and you navigate them well, then at the end of it, you know something about yourself that you didn't know before, and that is why the storm is there. And a person who is in their power is a little scary for the other people. Yeah? Not everybody's in their power. Many people have a desire for power. People who are weak want power, want to seem to be powerful, want to act powerful. But people who are powerful don't want power because they're already powerful. You see? And people who are violent are weak. People who have great power inside, which can be applied in whatever way is needed, they're not violent, but don't mess with them, you see, because such a one is aware of their power. They say power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and people repeat that for the purpose of making people adopt a position of weakness. That's why they say that. It's not the same as someone who's in their power. And the power that corrupts is the appearance of power acquired by a weak person to deceive other people. That's different. That's not real power. But here, when we talk about silence, we also connect the word power with silence many times. Someone who is in their power, having the power of silence, they have additional powers, special kinds of powers, which is very, very good to have. And this is like power to know what's going to happen next before it happens. It's like a kind of intuition, which means that when you're in the middle of a big storm, you know to go left or right, whichever is the right one, and there's no other way to know except intuition. But you have it, so you do it. It works. And different circumstances require you to catch what you have to do, or say, or not say, and you get it right because you have that intuitive power to just know. You don't know how you know, but you just know. This is a power that comes from the practice of silence. It's very useful. And when you have experienced this a few times, you start to know that about yourself, and you're not apprehensive of going into the storm because you trust that you will do the right thing, right time, right amount, or not, as needed, and you will just do it. So even when all sorts of bad things happen, or you lose everything, or you're defamed, or so many things can possibly happen, you just keep going, because it doesn't convince you of its power over you. It doesn't convince you that you should surrender to it. You just go. Is that right? And that is, taking the test, not to prove to anyone else, but to prove to yourself who you are, what you're made of. So these are good sailor qualities for going into the storm. And of course, after the storm is the calm. And before the storm is the calm. So it's sometimes calm, sometimes disturbing, afterwards calm. But sometimes in the storm, like if a storm comes to land and it destroys your house and knocks everything over with trees, or this type of hurricane activity, but according to your karma, who you are, what you stand for, what the meaning of your existence is, if something is lost, it'll come back. Just like that. Because if something is yours, it can't be taken away by any people or by any storm or by anything, because it's yours, your karmic fortune. So even if everything is taken away, it just come right back. And even if sometimes one of the good tests to have is character assassination. You might have experienced that. Character assassination. And why do you have that? Is usually because jealousy. So, jealousy makes people do bad things to people they're jealous of. This is how it works. And so the person who is doing this karma, they will get the consequence of that. But if somebody is the object or target of that karma, and it doesn't correspond to what they are, these defamations are not true, then everybody who heard it will forget it. and they will never know that they heard it. This is a spiritual law. It's very astounding. I've experienced this. And all sorts of bad things are said, and then, oh, no, that never happened. It did happen, but people forget. And because the quality of who you are and what you are is much more powerful than any words anybody can say which are not true. So when you know these things, and there's a storm of that type, you say, okay, enjoy your life. Have a nice karmic day. Because it doesn't touch you, you see. But in that case, one must not doubt the self. So there's a test of that, Because when you doubt yourself, there's a hesitation, and it weakens you. And it causes you to appear to be not okay. Whereas when you stay in your power, it causes you to appear to be okay as well as be okay. So there's what it is and there's what it appears to be. And it's not always lined up. And sometimes something really, really bad will happen, big storm will happen, because you are on the wrong boat going in the wrong direction, and it's not what it should be, and you are not listening to anybody who's telling you that. You're intent on going this way on this boat, and your destiny is over here, in a different direction, a different boat, doing a different thing. And so circumstances will take the form of a massive catastrophe that says, okay, if you're not going to listen to the messages that are coming, we give you a message that you cannot ignore. So that's a wake-up call. And so then we need to recognize what sort of storm is going on, what's the message in the storm, what's it telling us. When you're going into silence and you're feeling the vibrations that go with the storm that is there or is coming, you can detect what it's about, because you have this intuition which comes with silence. Some storms come because you get stuck in an ego problem. It's easy enough. And that fusion with the mask, that kind of stubborn decision that my way or the highway, and it's an obstacle, and so sometimes a storm is needed to break that, so that you come back to your truth, your purity, your humility. And so a storm will come to say, wake up. You are not, you forgot who you are. And you insist on being who you're not. And that's not permitted. You have to come back to yourself. And sometimes this will happen in the form of illness. And a person is busy becoming famous, whatever, all these things that can happen to people, and they become very fixed that, yes, I know what I'm doing, da-da-da, and it's actually not the right thing at all. And so failure. It's a storm too, to fail. And so this type of storm of failure is a very important one to bring oneself back to your essential truth, you can say. And people don't necessarily like losing face. In some cultures, if you lose face, you're expected to commit suicide. Not in this one, but in some cultures. Because this false sense of self is considered to be more important than the real self by whoever's around. And then losing face and all that is like totally unacceptable because it challenges the culture of false ego when it's really strong all around. And so this failure is very, very good, because if there isn't failure, things can go too far off course. And there is a kind of law, spiritual law, everything has to be in balance. And when things get out of balance one way or the other, something happens to redress the balance. And the storms sometimes are involved in that process. And to manage failure, to face failure, is very, very good for a person to develop themselves fully. And it helps to put you right in front of your dark side. Because when you fail, all sorts of dark energies and circumstances and feelings come up, which don't appear when you're not failing. And all of a sudden, failure brings all of that. And that failure is a storm in itself. So one must ride out failure. And when you fail, it tests to see to what extent you are dependent on being perceived as a success. And there is a spiritual law which is talked about in the Bhagavad Gita about this, that a yogi, a person who has the power of silence, is someone who has equanimity in the face of the pairs of opposites. So success and failure is one of those. So when you experience success, if you let it in and nurture yourself from your success, then it predisposes you to the opposite. And circumstances turn the other side, and you get a big storm of failure, which you don't like. But because of having taken in and nurtured yourself with success, you are not able to be in a state of equanimity regarding failure. So if you don't know this law, you will not be able to protect yourself against it. And the protection against it is that at the time when there is at the time when there is success, you make yourself neutral about that. And this is very important. It's an insurance that makes it possible that when the opposite of that success comes, you're easily able to be neutral about that. But if you're not neutral about success, then there's no way you can be neutral about failure. So in some ways, you can also have a storm of success. And there are people who suddenly become very successful, and then, they get drunk with it. And then the opposite happens. So you may have to go through the storm of success. It's very nice, right? Storm of success. But it's dangerous because of this flip side. And so if you know that the storm of success comes to put you on your guard and use that opportunity to really not shift away from your essential self just because you got a big success and everybody thinks you're wonderful, marvelous and fantastic, and all sorts of money is thrown at you and this and that and the other. But keep a certain dispassion about it, because you know that it's like a blip on the graph, an up blip, and then comes a down blip that's equivalent to it. And this is very important with many different kinds of pairs of opposites. And we don't tend to find the positive very unpleasant because it's positive. And so we don't generally guard against it. So the Gita warns very categorically that there can be fame and then there will be defamation. There can be success and there will be failure. There can be great wealth and poverty. All these things come with the equal and opposite other side. And so it's just very good to keep oneself independent of being moved by external highs and lows. I see, because when you look at success as a storm, sometimes a very, very big success is absolutely disturbing for someone because they don't know how to manage it. And it messes them up. I used to live in Hollywood and you see that a lot. The up and the down. And this state of equanimity, serenity, ease is considered the good state and the good capability for navigation of these up and down storms. All of this is to let you know that the sorts of things that these storms are testing you about is to enable you to become a sage. Because a sage knows, and you don't know unless you go through. And if you go through being aware of the laws and on guard and understanding how it works, then that also helps you to be stable, steady, and you continue to use this rotation of the dark and the light. Someone was asking about the dark qualities and where it comes from. Whether it comes from another life, you won't know because you can't go and have a look in another life. You can go for hypnotherapy or something, but it doesn't mean that what they're telling you is the truth or the whole truth. And so it's better to know that whatever is in you from any time is also in you now. So you don't actually need to look in past lives or future lives, because it's all there to be discerned at this time, because all of your past, present, and future is there in your soul. Because the soul is forever, right? It's eternal. And eternity, if you go forward into the future, you end up in the past. If you go backwards in the past, you end up in the future, because it's circular. And the current condition that you are in, the current state of being that you are, creates the future and is created by the past. So all of these things are linked, and they're all there. So when you're experiencing or you're detecting some dark thing, which may be something from a trauma, because I said earlier it comes from trauma, it does. And but all of it is already there, so it doesn't matter one way or the other if it's from this life, that life, future life, past life, whatever. There is dark, which is part of you, and not to be considered as a bad thing. Otherwise, people generally think dark is bad, light is good. We got to get rid of all the dark and be only light. This is how people think. But with silence, you can go and see your dark side, even if it's very dark, and be come to terms with it, be at one with it, and know that, okay, this too is me. And it doesn't mean you have to act on it. It doesn't mean you have to repress it. It just is good to know this is there, and I need to be aware about it and make sure that that energy is channeled in a way that is most useful and not in a destructive way. Because dark is not automatically and necessarily destructive. It can be. But, if you look around the room, you will see there's some light things and some dark things. If everything was all white, or all black, you can find anything. So these are the limits. One thing finishes, another thing starts, and it's all about that everything has to have limits, delimiters. There has to be day and night. You're wired that way. And the part that got confused is the people who decided that all the good bits are okay, you can keep them, and all the bad bits are not okay, you get rid of them. And you try grow a rose without manure, it's not going to work. So these things, they work together and they feed one another. And so the interpretation that people have given to light and dark, good and bad, and so on, all based in religion, is not necessarily the wisest way to go about things, and it actually increases human suffering. Who are you to punish who, for what, why? Who are you? There has to be some kind of arrangements for a society to work, but you do not make somebody good by harming them. It never succeeded ever. You do not make somebody aware that they're doing something wrong by striking them. They already know. They did it on purpose. That's how it works, right? But people don't get it. And so one needs to understand the necessity of the light and the dark, the ups and the downs, the storms are there to give us clarity about what's what. And that's good. Because what have we done to ourselves, to other people, on the basis of ideas which are counterproductive to human serenity? We became fake. Is that right? And weak. And so this is about coming into your power. And I think when you work through these storms and come out to the other side, your history of that is knowable by other people. And so you are, in a way, demonstrating that working with your dark side or dark experiences or whatever is part of life. Like death is part of life. Many people think death is a bad thing and should be avoided at all costs. It's very difficult to do that because your body will complete and then you go and get another one. But if you don't know that, then you'll operate in a different way. But if you know that, then you take it into consideration and be free from fear. Fear of pain, fear of death, fear of betrayal. So one must have tests. Sometimes you have to face death. That's a storm. And you might die or not die. You don't know. But if you die, then you go on, nobody else knows where you've gone, but you know where you're going. And if you don't die, then you came to know that you are greater than your fear of death. Then you don't have fear of death anymore. That's probably the biggest storm for people to come in front of that. But if you can come in front of that and see yourself that, I am comfortable with my mortality and my immortality, this is very empowering, you see. And when someone dies who you love, or you don't love, but someone dies, and you know that there's continuity, so you mourn, but you also know nobody is lost. Nobody can get lost. They'll be back. Then you can know that so many people in your world, in your life, are people that you already know since a long, long time. And sometimes in the relationship storms, some unfinished business gets cleared up and you continue. So that the enormousness of the storm can also be reduced to a manageable size by understanding things in this way. This is helpful, you see. And then the storm is manageable. you become experienced, you become strong. So this is okay, huh?